kernel.
Okay, welcome to the ThatITShow live show. What we are doing today is going to be a precedent in the last 3 years in the history of this channel. And we are actually live from the beautiful city of Zagreb. I would say beautiful sunny city of Zagreb, but it's midnight, so the sun is no longer here. I'm Yasmin, this is Vedran, and welcome to ThatITShow. Okay,
What are we discussing today, Mr. Jasmine?
I'm going to be easy. For everybody who is going to join us, we are talking about end of life for Windows 10. And what does it mean for the IT industry as such, and for the actual, I'm going to go with environment, because this is going to have a non-negligible impact on old PCs being obsoleted and thrown away. So we have something around, if my countdown is correct, and it is, because it is local time, it says that we have exactly 4 weeks and 4 days before the 14th of October this year expires. And this is when the Windows 10 is going to be end of life. And I wanted to quickly go through different things that are going to happen and different things that are actually interesting. So, first and foremost, what does it mean to end of life operating system? This means that Microsoft is no longer going to provide any feature updates. So, some, and I'm going to go with people that are not entirely the Microsoft side would say that this is a good thing, because when the Microsoft stops meddling in the Windows environment itself, it is not exactly a bad thing. So we are not going to see any feature updates, and nothing is going to change when it comes to the user interface. But unfortunately, Microsoft will also cease providing all the security updates. So not only the updates to the environment are going to be stopped, but also the security updates. This doesn't mean that Microsoft is not going to do the updates anymore. They're going to be providing the updates, but only to people who are going to subscribe or use long-term service version, which in the Microsoft ecosystem is called ISU, or Extended Security Update Program, and this is a paid service. So suddenly you are going to have to pay for each year of using the Microsoft updates. And the thing is that Microsoft actually said that they're probably going to increase the price for the updates each year.
You
So
think?
yes, the speculated price is going to be between $50 and $100. Nobody actually knows how much, but they said that they are probably going to actually change the price every year and increase the price for the security updates to the Windows 10, because this is intended for as intermediate step for large companies and large uh, basically corporations who are failing to actually move to Windows 10 for to Windows 11 for whatever reason.
Okay.
Now, when I'm talking about all the other things, I want to mention that the a couple of weeks ago, and it's not years, a couple of weeks ago, um, the numbers actually, or the estimates of the Windows users say that Microsoft has actually managed to move the global share of Windows 11 above the global share of Windows 10. So right now it's not 50-50, it's 53 versus 43, depending on who are you asking. But the thing is that right now enterprise PCs are also are using the Windows 10. They say, okay, the Windows Central says that around 50% of consumer PCs are still on Windows 10, and 40% of enterprise PCs are on Windows 10. So this is a huge number. And I must say that I wasn't expecting Microsoft is going to be so strict. I was expecting a nagging screen, as we had, what was it, Windows 7 And then when we moved from Windows 7 to Windows, shall we mention the Windows 8.1 without mentioning the Windows 8?
Windows 8.
Yes, but the thing that we had a that nagging screen that made you move, but the updates didn't stop. Now this is a more or less of a sudden stop. And the next thing that is also important is that Windows itself is not compatible with all the machines. So they said that from all the machines that they are currently seeing in telemetry data, around 80 to 87% are compatible with Windows 11, but the rest is not. And depending on who you ask, this is something between 50 and 70 million PCs that are going to become obsolete. Because nobody says that you couldn't run Windows 10 on them anymore, but this is going to be the Windows XP all over again. People are going to run old hardware running old operating systems without any system security updates. And the problem is that this time around it's 15 years later or 20 years later, and we are in a completely different headspace and internet space that is much less secure and much more open to attacks.
I was about to ask you something related to that. So how is that different to MS-DOS to Windows 3.1, 3.1 to 95, 95 to 98, 98 to Millennium? How is that any different?
I think that the most important part is that with all the different things that people actually, or all different systems that you are mentioning, when they decided to switch, you could more or less decide on yourself, do you want to switch? This is the first thing. And you could switch whatever hardware you had on your table. So you weren't directly influenced by the type of configuration of your PC. Instead, if you decided to move to the new operating system, if it didn't work because your hardware was not strong enough or wasn't fast enough, it was your problem, but the system itself would work. Okay. Now they are actually saying, okay, Windows 11 is not going to work on this piece of hardware, and there is not a possibility to actually put it on the old hardware. So, okay, there are workarounds, but the thing is that right now Microsoft actually means business, and I must say that I don't like this. I was expecting for a more softer approach to moving from one operating system to another. And the other thing is that this is Microsoft actually slowly using the same idea that Apple has been using for years. So basically obsoleting all hardware and saying, okay, this is the last version of operating system that you can install it on it. But the thing is that that we have right now is that opposing to what Apple does, the rest of the ecosystem is actually not expecting this. So when it comes to Apple, usually the applications themselves know what the cadence is. They know that the new operating system is going to come out each year. They know that they can expect 3 to 5 years of backwards compatibility, so they are ready for this. This is the first time that people actually need to upgrade, because it's not only Windows 11 or Windows 10. It's all the different things that actually expect Windows 10 API to work. So there is going to be a lot of applications that are going to have problems with Windows 11, because there are a lot of applications that have problems with Windows 11. When we were preparing all of this, I ran into the usual set of problems of Bluetooth not working. Right now, while we are casting, my start menu is not working. To my utter amazement, I realized that Internet Explorer is still a multi-window but single-task or single-thread application. Because what actually stopped my Windows Explorer was that it had a window open because I couldn't connect to my NAS. My NAS is down, and I couldn't connect to my remote disk. It threw an error. This error went behind one of the windows, and then I couldn't use the start menu, which is something that I wasn't expecting 30 odd years of later, after they actually said Windows 95 is going to have a true multitasking. So no, people are not happy with Windows 11, and the cut is going to be pretty hard, and it is going to be pretty straightforward. So it's a strange place where we are in that. Now let me hear what you think about this.
Yeah, I have fresh stories of Windows 10 and 11. Don't really know where to start. So the computer that I'm sitting at right now, Windows 10, and in the office, which I came from very, recently, some half an hour ago, Windows 11. Start menu doesn't work properly on both. Search engine doesn't work properly on both. Both of them have problems when logging in for different reasons. The Windows 10 machine here is not domain connected, so it's completely local, and sometimes it requires, I don't know, 2 minutes to log in, and then it doesn't log in completely. Some icons are missing, some taskbar icons are missing, and whatnot. Then I log off, log in, back. Usually that takes me back to the normal Windows 10 state and whatnot, etc., etc. Then I had a situation a couple of weeks ago that I mentioned, in which Windows 10 updated all by itself after my continuous refusal and logged me in as administrator without asking for a password, and that account does have a password. Windows 11, in terms of the multimedia things, I have issues with stuff like Audacity, I have problems with Reaper. Bluetooth doesn't work properly. Wireless sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. My network connection on Windows 10 sometimes breaks, rarely so. On Windows 11, it's let's say a by-day occurrence. Every 2 days something happens. Wireless works really bad for me on Windows 11. I have a laptop with Windows 10 and 11, and basically all of those things are carbon copies on the laptops as well. What else? Cameras. Cameras work really poorly on Windows 11. Constant breaking of connection breaking or something. On Windows 10, mostly it works for me rather well. And all of that kind of reminds me, we went back full circle back to, if you ask me, pre-Windows 95. Before the plug and play thing started, before hardware started becoming more, how should I put this, let's say universal in terms of the ease of use and some of the, let's say, driver-related issues. For me, discounting some of the things that Apple is doing, OS X is, at least in terms of the multimedia, still a much better choice, whatever you say. And overall, the experience, and I recently bought Mac Studio. I have to say I'm very happy with that machine, works really well. For the time being, although I had to redeploy everything because M series and I had external disks, and storage is a notorious problem with all of the Apple products because it's incredibly expensive, so I had to resort to external storage, but at least I have a lot of connections, a lot of Thunderbolts, so that's good. Most PCs don't have that, and then that translates into Windows 10 connections as well. Don't get me started there, because you're gonna give me a lecture about how my computer is computer for nobody except for me, and we're going to disagree, and we've already been down that road before, so let's not revisit that right now.
No, I'm going to revisit it, and I'm going to interrupt you because of one simple thing. You actually touched on a very, very, very important topic.
Okay.
And this very important topic is that Windows 11 is currently unable to install unless you use the Microsoft account. So either you have a domain account or you have a Microsoft account.
Okay.
So is your computer on yours?
Excellent. I've seen some cracks and hacks that kind of go around the problem, but I didn't try. We both are in the education business. We have free licenses for all of our computers that we use for education, so it's not necessarily a problem for us, but I can imagine that a lot of people are not happy with that.
I know that people are not happy with that because I was talking to a friend of mine. He was asking me, is there a way around this? Yes, there is. And the only way around it that I can see right now without hacking is to actually put up your own domain using Samba, which it's by itself is a completely and utterly stupid way to solve the problem that we have, but it can be done. So I can see a small Raspberry Pi Samba connected solution to the problem with Windows. And the other thing is that Microsoft has a huge problem when it comes to, it's not only the multimedia. It's when you mentioned plug and play. I was actually thinking about plug and play today because I had to install a utility to trying to find out which USB device kept connecting and disconnecting every 10 seconds,
Okay.
which by itself shouldn't happen. It was annoying because I kept getting this ding voice or the ding sound that Windows makes when device is connected or disconnected. And then it transpired that the thing that actually was disconnecting was the one of the disks, so the USB disk. And I honestly have zero idea why it was happening because I just switched the USB ports and everything went fine, and the ports that I switched were on the same hub. So zero idea why it happened, and it just kept happening. Then I switched the ports, I installed the utility, found out which device was it, switched the ports, then everything was fine. And this is one of those things that I don't like about Windows right now. But the thing is that you mentioned a lot of things. Windows, even Windows 10, are slowly regressing. They're going back in time. We are seeing more and more problems with different things that cannot be solved. When you mentioned the video, you have seen probably the NDS fiasco.
No.
The NDS, the streaming, the network streaming of the video using NDS protocol.
You mean NDI?
NDI, sorry.
That's what I did. NDS, I didn't know what it was.
No,
Sorry.
no, I meant it's a little bit late for me, so I know what I'm talking about, but I don't know what the acronym is. So the for those of you who haven't followed it, Microsoft actually admitted that they had created a problem with an update that actually broke the NDI protocol. So people couldn't use the NDI protocol for a while. It was something like, I don't know, 3 weeks or so. But the thing is that I would expect that the protocols like NDI, like iSCSI, like SSD communication, like NVMe communication, like file system, like Explorer, would be pretty stable by now. I completely gave up on having the search, functional search in Windows, whatever Microsoft does, and I think that this is just a thing that they are intentionally keeping broken because they want to have something that people can point at so that everything else goes under the radar. But the thing is that this operating system is becoming worse. It is becoming more entangled in its own problems. It is entangled with Windows accounts and Windows solutions to communicating with the internet. It is requiring people to be online. It is having enormous problems when you try to install something from officially from the Microsoft Store. I went through installation since, as we already mentioned, I have a kid who has finished his first grade, now he's in the second grade, and he started programming in the Minecraft Education Edition. Because there is a programming tool in it, and they have it for free in the school. And it actually took me more than 25 minutes to be able to install it. And the problem wasn't the Minecraft. The problem wasn't the thing that they had the license for. The problem was how to actually get the license to talk to Minecraft to get everything working once he started. Because the system that Microsoft provides actually makes the okay, this is part of our school system, but you actually need to turn on the Microsoft environment then you need to turn on the Outlook in order to be able to receive an email, in order to validate the Minecraft installation. And it takes 15 minutes to do each of those steps because you need to wait for something to happen in the background. This is the worst user experience that you can have.
You think?
And yes. So, as you said, we are not going to go back into all the different things that we need to talk about when it comes to Microsoft. But what Microsoft is doing right now actually makes me switch to Fedora. And I must say that I'm maybe 40% there. I'm right now thinking about, and I mean actually thinking about doing the most stupid thing that you can do, and this is to do. Okay, you are going to be amused.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is this: to run Fedora as the primary operating system.
Funny enough.
And
okay,
then
continue.
to actually get a Fusion or the VMware Workstation, since it's free, to run directly from the old disk. So to actually boot my Windows from the disks, not dual boot, but boot it into a virtual machine connected to actual hardware. And then use it as a prime. So having Fedora underneath everything, so that I can actually control the devices, and then get some of the devices through, so that the people can actually, or that I can use those devices.
Have you gone completely mad?
Yes. It has been a long summer, and I didn't have a lot of things to do, so I was thinking about how to overcomplicate everything that I do.
Yeah, that sounds more like it. Going back for a second to the topic of USB, if I may. In front of me, I have two very expensive Thunderbolt hubs.
Okay.
When I say expensive, I mean all of them are expensive. These are really expensive.
There are no cheap Thunderbolt hubs that work.
Yeah, they are. They work really well. No objection there.
No, but there are no cheap Thunderbolt hubs that work. You don't get a cheap Thunderbolt hub and have it work. But the thing is that actually, when you buy a Thunderbolt hub, you can actually be sure that it is probably going to work, either completely or not at all.
Primary thing that you do when buying a USB hub or a Thunderbolt hub is that it has to be powered. So that's the first thing. If it's not powered, forget about it. I do have one non-powered Thunderbolt hub. It doesn't have a lot of ports, so it works, but still, this is my last resort solution that I bought for the situations where I have to do some kind of a quick presentation, where I have a beamer or something, and for just purely business reasons, a couple of regular USB ports and HDMI, that's it. So that works really well. But overall, I've been having such a miserable experience lately with USB. It's just been an incredibly frustrating journey, especially with Windows 11. So you know that I'm a big fan of Sonnet USB cards, which are not necessarily known for being very cheap. I have a set of 4 or 5 of those cards, which I paid for dearly. And I have a couple of those in my computer, both at home here, and in the Thunderbolt external case, and I also have it in the office in the computer. Generally speaking, in Windows 10 they work well, no issues there. And again, we're going back to the topic that you mentioned in more than a couple of episodes, the computer that nobody needs, my computer, with a lot of USB ports. That has been basically serving me well, no problems whatsoever. The only thing that I keep on noticing is the fact how sensitive USB has become to USB cables. Quality of USB cables first, and then we can start, our endless tirade about the USB standards and whatnot, which we already did in a past episode, and I really don't want to revisit that. But my problem now has become the fact that with the non-USB-C USB, so regular USB from the olden days, USB 1, 2, 3, I have regular disconnects I have regular issues with the audio, and I keep on having issues with situations in which I connect a USB drive, and then it starts clicking and disconnecting, and something happens. I don't know what. So in Windows 11, it's been worse, much, 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 much worse. Hopefully,
The thing is that you are completely right on this, and the thing is that also um, I'm seeing that a lot of people have a huge problem with USB-C and USB-A. I haven't seen, when talking to a lot of people, I haven't seen a lot of people having USB-C hubs. They're usually using USB 3 hubs over USB-A, and then they are connecting USB-C to it using USB-A. And the thing is that this combination is not working good. It's a problem. The other thing is that USB has become a huge uh, lame duck basically when it comes to standards, because they're trying to overload the standard with something that it was never intended to do. USB was intended to become a standard for connecting low speed devices basically.
Yeah, at least
And
in the past, but not necessarily now.
yes, but right now, instead of actually switching to a different standard to enable hard drives, especially NVMe's and faster drives, to enable networks, to enable high-speed video, they are still sticking to trying to actually make USB work, regardless of it not being able to do this thing. Also, when I said that if you are buying a Thunderbolt, your Thunderbolt is a thing that you actually have to pay dearly for, and Thunderbolt cables are notoriously expensive. But the same thing that makes Thunderbolt cables expensive makes cheap USB cables unusable. Because USB cables that are cheap usually don't work, especially USB-C, because they have two ways of being connected, and a lot of times, and I have seen a lot of cables that use only one orientation in one way, and the other orientation is not working. So what they're actually doing, they're breaking the standard. Most of the people don't understand that actually USB-C has two different. It's not symmetrical. It has two different channels that can talk to the computer, so you can actually make one orientation work in one way and then the other orientation work in another way. And this is something that a lot of cables are breaking, and they're using only one orientation. So it can actually happen to you that you connect, especially cheaper cables, you connect them, they don't work, you switch the orientation, now suddenly that they work. And this is bad. And the worst thing is that there is no actual way to know what cable is and how the cable behaves unless you actually try it. And sometimes it works on some devices and doesn't work on others without any real connection or any real explanation. So USB is in a bad place right now. But let's go back to the Windows 10.
No,
And I wanted to say that
I have quite a few problems actually with Windows 10 and USB, but it's less pronounced than with Windows 11. And the topics that we already covered in the past, so the cables, the Thunderbolts, the various USB standards and whatnot. I was hoping that over, let's say, the past year or so, since we've done the last episode in which we ranted for half an hour about how crappy USB is, that something is going to be solved, but I don't think so. If anything, it's gotten even worse.
yes, but the thing is that when I said I wanted to go back to the Windows 10, Windows 11, the thing is that I would expect that when the decision was made to go with end of life with Windows 10, that they would put all the efforts into making Windows 11 work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing those efforts, but I'm also seeing that they are going to be actually removing Windows 10 from all the tables and everything else. Now, I think that this transition needs to happen, And let's talk about why it actually happens. But this transition is right now not so clean as Microsoft wants us to believe. I'm not happy with the state of Windows 11 right now, and I don't think that Windows 11 actually is the operating system that you can actually depend on. This is a huge problem. And what I wanted to say is that the transition needs to happen. The transition needs to happen simply because Windows has a huge, or Windows kernel has a huge problem with multitasking when it comes to to newer CPUs,
Okay. Yeah.
and they had to solve this. The Intel's director inside the chips
Thread
and the
director.
AMD's counterpart,
Thread director.
uh,
Yeah.
the director, yes, and the AMD's counterpart, which I always forgot the name for. But the thing is that they both need to actually talk to the operating system. So there is no way for the operating system to behave like it used to behave, and this is to just push the binaries into the processor and expect it to behave like it is. Now the processor has a say on what is happening inside the processor. So suddenly there is a two-way communication, and more importantly, there is some decision making done on the part of the processor. And this is something that they had to change when it comes to a kernel.
Yeah, that's a problem that we've described in some of our papers actually, and we met this problem head on one of our courses in the college that we work on computer architecture, because it seems as though Microsoft is slowly but surely realizing that they need to go back to the idea of hardware-software co-design. This is something that Apple, a topic on which Apple is so far ahead of Microsoft and everybody else, it's just not even describable. But the problem is the fact that modern CPUs have become so complex, modern OSs are as complex, there are so many cores that are available. That's the way in which the industry worked since 2004 till today. So for the past 20 years, it's all about the scalability in terms of the scale out. So adding more cores, more cores, more cores. And that wasn't necessarily followed by huge jumps in terms of knowledge and approaches to programming viably, with resources being capable of doing so many things in parallel. This is where GPUs are much better, in much better state than the CPUs, which is kind of natural because they're meant to be parallel devices. But still, the only real place where you can realistically use all of the CPU cores that you might have in your, you have a couple of these epic servers and Rome and Milans and whatnots in your server room. If you want to really use them, the only way to do that realistically is to do some kind of a virtualization environment. And Windows 10
Yes,
or 11 are just not a good use case for that, nor should they be.
no, but the thing is that the only thing that right now is distinguishing better processors from the slower and older and worse. I'm not going to say worse, but not so good processors is that they are increasing the core counts, and this is something that is becoming a problem because if you remember a couple of years ago, I think one of our students actually was he bought a 13th generation high-end PC, and then when he realized that he cannot actually run 100% of the processor all the time
Mm-hmm.
because the processor itself is not capable of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those things. They are trying to upsell the processors by increasing the core count, but the actual cores are completely incapable of running all the time in the 100% of a load. And the second thing is that nobody actually needs it. There is no way for you to actually use the amount of processing power that you have in your regular PC right now. The amount of power that is available to you is compared to, I'm going to go with the smaller data center from 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And this is inside your own PC. I know that, for example, right now my PC is doing, I don't know how many threads of decoding and encoding, But at the same time, when I go to the performance tab, and when I go to try to see what is kept happening on my CPU, I see that I have right now, so I have a logical processor 24, so 16 cores plus 8, or 8 plus 8. It's 13,700 KF. And my utilization is 13% when it comes to the entirety of the PC. Most of the cores are parked.
Yeah.
So, and I'm doing something that can be considered, I'm going to say, CPU intensive, because I'm looking at the meat that we have that we are talking in. I'm looking at the stream that we are streaming on the YouTube. I have a few other things happening in the background. By a few, I mean probably 20. I have a virtual machine running in the background and so on, and still I'm not using more than 20% of my PC.
Mhm.
And there is no reason to do anything, but Microsoft had to create an environment that enables this thing to run. And this is why they had to get the new kernel running, and this is the reason why they're pushing for Windows 11. But Windows 11 as such is not ready.
I mean, we are on the same generation. You just have a little bit lower spec CPU. I'm on 3900K, 32 cores. My CPU utilization right now is 80%. I have a whole bunch of screens open, multiple browsers, streams, this stream, Google Meet, a couple of downloads happening at the same time. OneDrive opened, the email opened. Yeah, it's really not something that is going to hog the machine at all. This is something that just doesn't happen nowadays um, with the today's CPUs. And if something doesn't go wrong with one or more applications, you know, when you're working on hardware that's relatively recent. For me,
You just remind me what I'm doing wrong. Sorry, I'm just going to be quickly interrupting you. You know how to get your PC to go to 60% of utilization?
just add 20 Google Chrome tabs.
No, open Outlook.
Religiously, I haven't opened Outlook in 3 years, 3+ years now.
I run right now opened Outlook because I decided that I'm going to keep my different things that I'm working separate, and for the reasons of actually making myself, uh, keeping myself excited about my job. When somebody offers me Outlook, I use the Outlook so that I can be on the top of my game. My adrenaline rush starts every time when I open the Outlook.
Please let me say something, because it keeps annoying me and has been annoying me for the past probably 10 years now. Mobile Outlook. Search engine. So I search, for example, emails from Yasmin. It throws out a couple of emails from 2022, couple of emails from 2023, couple of emails from 2024, and then starts displaying some emails from 2024, and then after that mixes everything all together. It's been like that for 10 plus years.
Yes and no, but I know that right now, I know that a couple of companies were paying attention,
Hmm.
and I must say that Google is right now just simply giving the Microsoft running for its money. I was trying to use Gemini to work with my emails on Gmail. Okay, so probably the simplest thing that you can actually see when you're trying to use your email is try to see what is the oldest email from a certain person.
Hmm.
You just need to basically sort by two different criteria. The only way to do it in Gmail is to just search for a certain person, then sort it by date. But you can do it. You can do it in a couple of seconds. Gemini is completely unable to understand what is happening.
Hmm.
Actually, Gemini, when I was asking it to give me what is the first time that I contacted you, it told me that it happened in 2023.
Okay.
which by itself is a little bit off, maybe by 15 years or so. But anyways, the Gemini is giving the Microsoft run for its money. I think that Gemini is worse than Outlook, and they managed to actually put something directly inside the Gmail client or the web client that actually provides you with the Outlook experience, but even worse.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not dump on the different things that are happening on this side. Let's go to another thing that I want to touch on this episode, and this is the impact that we are going to have with different computers that are old. What is going
Are we
to happen
talking
to
about
older computers?
environmental impact or something else?
It's partly environmental impact, but also the impact on actually having computers that would otherwise be used for education being thrown away because there is simply no way to switch them over to Linux. I know quite a few places that have older laptops or older desktops that are unable to switch to Windows 11. They're educational environments, and they cannot switch to Linux because the curricula that they're using is completely incompatible with Linux.
Interesting.
So you suddenly have a problem because you need to throw away the hardware that is completely functional. It runs day to day right now, but it is going to be dysfunctional a couple of weeks from now.
Okay.
And I know that there is a solution to this, and I know what the solution is for our schools right now. And this is the solution was that Microsoft actually got LTSC
Windows
version of Windows 10 available for them, so that they can actually extend the life of the environments that they have. So they're basically saying, yes, we know that especially schools have a problem because they have a huge number of computers that are running every day, and they simply don't have the budgets to upgrade. So we are letting them continue using Windows 10, but those are state schools, and those schools are a completely separate thing. I know that quite a few people have laptops, including you and me, that are going to be incompatible with Windows 11. We recently got a great deal for a laptop that shouldn't exist. So the Xeon-based Dell that we got
3 generations old, but still cool.
Yes, but the cool thing about this, okay, let me just quickly get everybody on board. I got refurbished Dells that had Xeons 1560, if I remember correctly, 1500 something.
Okay.
But the thing is that the Xeons themselves are. It's cool to have a laptop with a server CPU. So a laptop from 2017 that is capable of running 256 gigabytes of RAM, 128 is recommended, and it is actually capable of having an SSD and an NVMe, and it is still 7 years old or 8 years old. So it's a fun thing to have, and the price was something like 200 euros. So the thing is that I like all hardware like this because nobody can tell me that this is not a capable machine. But I cannot use it with Windows 11 anymore. It's basically unusable.
I'm having a chat with people who are following us.
Yes, I see that people have. People are talking, and this is the reason why I wanted to have some sort of
live stream
interaction with people, because I see that people are joining.
Some of them are our students, and privately they're asking me when they're going to get the points and the grades for their exams, which you haven't done. But let's forget about that for a second. You know, one other thing that really surprised me in terms of how it was announced and how it has found a way to mysteriously disappear from conversation related to Windows 10. Microsoft's promise of a new era of Windows 10 being the last Windows.
I think that it went away with the same train that introduced Intel's multi-core and separate core strategy. Because I think that when they were talking about Windows 10 being the last version of Windows, nobody thought that they needed to change the entirety of the kernel and the entirety of the kernel space. And they have a huge problem with this. Because what they need to do, and let's talk about technology, they need to support different core types. They need to talk to the CPU. They need to get the information back from the CPU so that the CPU has some sort of back and forth with the operating system. But also, the operating system needs to know what are the desires of the applications that are compiled, and the applications themselves need to be aware that they are running on basically different architectures.
Okay.
It's not entirely different architectures, but suddenly an application can use some of the flags on some of the cores, but other cores don't have the flags or don't have the capabilities to do some things. So, for example, when you're reading email and you want your email to be fast, you're going to get a performance core. But Outlook also needs to be able to run on the economy core or whatever it is called right now. And it needs to be able to actually do the same things there, although those cores don't support all the things that the performance core supports. So it's a huge problem for Microsoft to actually make this thing run correctly.
Efficiently.
So I think that the only natural thing would be to actually say, okay, Windows 10 is going to be the last um, the homogeneous core architecture in the CPU. We are now going to basically create a multi-processor operating system,
Okay.
and this is what happened.
I mean, the date when we are going to have to say goodbye to the support of Windows 10 is definitely very close now. It's just weeks away. People will start to have figuring out the strategy to move to Windows 11. I have a customer that has been planning that for a better part of the past year, not 2025, 2024. And one of the reasons was the Microsoft Office support. One of the reasons for that was support for specific options on Windows Server. Then that was tied to some options that were related to the latest ideas, Microsoft ideas of licensing for Microsoft Exchange, which brought on the idea of, yeah, we have to upgrade Office because Outlook and Exchange compatibility is actually a thing in the past couple of years and whatnot. So all of these sorts of changes, they're like the cloud era changes, everything needs to be paid for in blood, every molecule of air and whatnot. This is the state of the industry in which we are right now. At the end of the day, it does have some merit, but not all, not the whole amount that is being presented to us, because there are certain things that are just unacceptable. I mean, an email client not working with an older version of an email server is just plain stupid.
Yes, especially when we are talking about the protocols that were invented, what, 30 years ago. So IMAP and POP3 are not the protocols that were invented yesterday. And what Microsoft did is that they started reinventing things, and this is um, another completely different topic. But there is a nice thing going on in the chat, because somebody mentioned that they work in manufacturing, so they have programs that are a way to connect and send information to machinery, and this is always a problem. Because people don't understand that, for example, since I was working in the hospital industry, that behind a CT or magnetic resonance or whatever, there is usually a server,
Mm-hmm.
and this server actually needs to communicate with very, very, very peculiar and uh, completely, usually single-use cards that are talking to different parts of the machine, and the drivers there are not something that you're going to update every day or even every year. And having to remove the operating system and upgrade is something that can be a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
I know that even in the 2015, when I last talked to people, I know that there were a couple of CTs working on the Windows NT. So people actually cannot simply move the operating system. There are a couple of reasons. Uh, Hospital industry or hospitals are a specific usage case because almost the same thing as the nuclear power. They have their own set of rules that are extremely strict when it comes to verifying how a particular operating system works. So there is no way for you to just simply upgrade the operating system every week and have the machine operate.
Uh,
So
a couple of additions. Actually, I've been chatting with our viewers in the chat box. Some of the use cases that people consider to be more statistical, numbers than reality, and I keep on running into situations in which I am constantly reminded that it's not true, that the numbers are actually quite larger. One of our viewers works in manufacturing, and in manufacturing, in healthcare, and in many other different types of industries, you just cannot install a new computer to run your machines. It's not doable because the applications are not going to be working, because the libraries, the .NET versions, the whatever, basic Visual C++ libraries are not going to be compatible, etc., etc. I've personally seen in the past couple of years many situations in which people are still running stuff like Windows XP for those purposes, which actually seems normal because most of these things are not necessarily connected to internet and are not necessarily being threatened by all of the latest security problems and whatnot. But it's the market for having older machines, older physical machines, so hardware and the older operating system, is much larger than a lot of people think. Hence the reason why oftentimes when I'm discussing cloud technology, I try to be as realistic as possible, because I know a couple of use cases in which all of the bells and whistles of all of the clouds in the world are not going to be able to provide you with an environment in which you can run certain types of applications in cloud.
no, there is a huge market that people are actually completely unaware of for the different configurations, and we are not talking about architectures right now. We are talking about configurations that are trying to uh, reconcile the newer generation of CPUs, newer generation of memories, with extremely old architectures. For example, ESA cards, PCI cards, and so on, because people want to have faster computers.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, if you have a CNC, you have a CNC machine, you are lucky.
Our viewer, I think I know who he is. I think he was working with the CNC machine.
Yes, but if you have a CNC machine, you are basically lucky if you are able to move away from DOS.
Yeah.
And Windows 95, Windows 98, uh, maybe Windows XP were able to run those. And now moving to a completely new architecture is not going to work. Newer CPUs are completely unable to run Windows XP. It used to be that you could buy a newer computer instead of Windows XP and say, okay, this is going to be fine. But right now, from my experience, I didn't try it in quite a long time, but I know that you at least need to decide which cores you are going to be running on, and then disable the rest of those the other cores, because Windows XP is completely unable to understand what is happening inside the computer. But these are the edge cases that people don't think about. And on the other hand, those are the edge cases that actually cannot make an investment in computer because the computer itself is the cheapest part of the machine.
Yeah. On my desk right now, literally, I'm resting my hand on my very old, super expensive and rare synthesizer. Do you know which CPU is inside?
I would guess Motorola.
Nope. Pentium 4.
Pentium 4. Okay,
Yes.
you're quite up to date.
Uh, yeah. Well, the machine is still working and is highly sought, and it not necessarily sold cheaply. I have the next generation of that keyboard as well. It has an x86 CPU, something like a Celeron or whatever, and lately the new generation has come out, and some 2 weeks ago I received the, let's call it the third generation of that same product. Over the span of exactly 20 years, because the first one was released in 2005. I use this keyboard that I'm resting my fingers now on for better part of the, let's say, 12 years or so, live and in the studio and whatever, and it's based on a super old CPU, which was basically very old already in the era when the product came to market, because Pentium 4 that we are talking about is a Northwood CPU, which was very much obsolete in 2005. This is just one metaphor out of dozens and dozens of metaphors of older, platforms in terms of hardware being used for a variety of products, working really well and very stable, which were, a product of the times, of course, but still very fluent in doing what the things that these things need to do. And there are so many examples of this. It's just people oftentimes forget about this and harp about the cloud and serverless and whatnot. That's not the solution.
But the cloud in the serverless itself is not interesting. What is interesting is that we seem to have lost quite a few things along the way. For example, I haven't seen the virtual PC being mentioned in quite a couple of years, although Microsoft was expecting this to become a newest craze in the distributed computing.
I was about to say something about was I think that this was on Windows 7 or something, 64-bit version that had a 32-bit VM in which people were deploying 32-bit versions of Windows 7 so that they can run, e-banking applications and whatnot, because it didn't work on the 64-bit for a couple of years in the future, and many many examples like that.
But these Matrushka doll installations are going to become more common.
Yes,
Because
I'm perfectly aware.
I see Windows 11 running Windows 10 machine that is going to be running Windows 7 machine that is going to be running a Windows XP machine, simply because to make it work.
We have a message in the chat box. You have to hear this. Bring back the aero aesthetics. I would go a step further. I want Windows Classic start menu and everything related to that to come back, because over the span of 10 years or so, in Windows 7 and Windows 8 and 8.1, I used to use the classic shell application to provide me with the, sort of regular classic UI look and feel of Windows, which is what I always configure out of the box to be configured as close as possible on the modern day OSs, because they used to work, they were usable, and even at times even search worked in them.
But the thing is that I'm most annoyed about is Microsoft has stopped creating problems in the UIs. They moved to creating problems in basic services. So
Oh, I disagree.
no, but I don't care about the UI when my USB stops working. Suddenly, it's not only just looking at the thing. Suddenly, the thing itself is not working.
The replacement for control panel in Windows 11 is the most awfully designed replacement in Windows ever done. And I'm not necessarily sure that that change needed to be made at all. Control panel is something that most people know about if they've been, using any kind of Windows PC since early 2000s or even before. The latest revision of the control panel, or right-click my computer application, which is basically, again, the shell for the same application in GUI, is just awful and unusable. I need at least 2 or 3 clicks more to find certain functionalities that were, a couple of levels more accessible in the past. And there we go. We have more than a few comments in the chat box confirming what I'm saying as well. Configuring network in the new UI of Windows 11. It's just, come on. And they're talking about completely killing control panel, which I'm completely against.
No, the thing is that about the thing that I most like about the what they did to Windows 11 and the networking is how amazingly stupid a read-only part of the system is. So it's actually hard to find a way to edit the networking once you see what the network connections
Oh,
are.
I have a better one.
And
You are a domain admin on Windows Server. Right click on the network interface properties. You want to change the IP addresses. It tells you that you don't have permissions. You remember
yes,
that
yes,
one?
yes.
That was the best.
But they since, as you said, they since decided to make it easier for you to change the things. You just need to update, and you're the administrator then.
What about that shortcut on Windows 11 desktop? Tell me more about this picture.
Yes, if you turn on the spotlight, you cannot turn off the tell you more about this picture icon, because the spotlight itself hard codes the icon on the display. But the thing is that
But what's the use
uh,
of that? What's the use of that? What's the
there is a
registry hack? Yeah, I know.
no, but I think that there is a thing that we could talk about, and this is that sometimes um, Microsoft simply does not have a use for something.
Hmm.
They just have a team that implements a feature that nobody asked.
That exists in a semi-universe independent of the other universes that they try to touch. That's what you're saying.
Yes, the thing is that they just have a design by committee. And this design by committee actually means that there is different parts of the committee that need to do something. So suddenly you have somebody from whatever the project team is saying, okay, we have something to include in Windows. And then they include it. But nobody asks for it to be included. It just comes to be, then appears in Windows, and then disappears sometimes later.
Are we talking about Windows Longhorn again?
No. We are talking about stuff like Paint 3D.
Multi-tab notepad.
Not the notepad, but Paint 3D was the best.
And removal of WordPad.
And removal WordPad, Paint 3D, multi-tab, basically multi-tab anything.
Yep.
They decided to, 15 years after everybody introduced multi-tabs, they decided to implement them in some basic applications which nobody asked for. Notepad++ exists because Microsoft was unable to do the Notepad. And then Microsoft decided, okay, now we are going to implement this one single feature. We are going to do it, I'm looking for a, not saying half-assed way.
It is
but
what it is.
they implemented it in such a way that nobody was happy with this. And then they decided, okay, whatever.
And then on top of it you have Excel that loads for 2 minutes.
No, but the thing is that yesterday I actually managed to get a notepad in such a state that when you close the document, it didn't save the document automatically.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't open the do you wish to save the changes. It just ignore the changes and close the document.
Did you throw some?
Which by itself is amazing.
Did you throw some assembly language in it or binary something?
No, I think that I basically tripped something inside the user interface that told Notepad to close and then reopen. But it failed to save things when it was closing.
Oh,
so, yes, but the thing is that the things that are happening are not. I think that we should get this thing to an end because we have already been talking for quite a few minutes.
64 minutes.
But the thing is that yes, but the thing is that what Microsoft is doing is something that is, I think, fundamentally wrong from the perspective of the user.
Okay.
I don't know who is going to benefit from all of this. The users don't want the new operating system. The new operating system works much worse than the old one. There are technical reasons why the new operating system works, but they could have been solving the problems before trying to push us to migrate. And also, obsoleting 80 or 100 million PCs simply because you cannot support two different operating systems, I'm not with it.
Yeah.
Especially when you also make people use your own infrastructure, so you need to use the Microsoft account. And I think that this is going to attract some legislative people, because I'm not completely sure that you can actually tell people you cannot use your operating system on your own PC without using our own cloud service. Specifically because this means that your computer needs to be always on,
Mm-hmm.
always on the internet, and this is something that people are unable to do. Some people are actually unable to use the PCs always on. I always think about there was a guy when I was working in the magazines. There was a guy who had a huge problem when Microsoft introduced the activation of Windows,
Mm-hmm.
because he was working at a ship, so he didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
And when Microsoft, because he changed something on his motherboard, when Microsoft said, okay, you need to reauthorize the application, he had no way to actually do it.
Yeah, that's the good old thing about changing 3 or 4 components in your computer and then reactivation. Yeah.
Yes, but now it's better. If you change any component, you're no longer able to use your license. But this is a thing for another day, because I was going through the different things that you can see when you're upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11, and there are scary things in there.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyways, guys and girls who were with us today, thank you for being here. This was the first experiment. When I was doing the name of this episode, it was version 0.1, and Vedran changed it to the end of Windows 10. Uh, so anyways, thank you for being with us. I hope that we were half as interesting as we are when we are offline, because this is now become a online only show. So
Yeah, sure.
we'll see.
Yeah, we are practicing for future events that we have to produce and do everything for, which are coming.
Yes, this is the one thing, and the other thing is that we need to make sure that Vedran doesn't have too much work to do with
That has nothing to do
editing.
with today's episode, and you know it.
Yes, yes, I know, but it is required for me to completely change the topic and to decide on the thumbnail. And now I am unable to do it because you already chose the thumbnail.
I have a thumbnail ready. I'm going to upload it as soon as we finish, which is right about now. So thanks for
Okay.
thanks for being with us,
Uh,
and we'll see each other in the next episode.
yes, people, see you next time.